A man of the theater came to see me a few years ago. And his reason was this: number of theatrical people backstage. And they said to him, but he said, I've done considerable reading in comparative religion, psychology. Give it up. Nobody could answer my questions. Someone said, why don't you go to Bishop Sheen, have him answer your questions? I have a number of questions I would like to put to you. And I said to him, now, before you ask, you go back to the hotel where you were living. Get rid of that chorus girl you're living with. Questions. And he threw up his hands and laughed. And he said, oh, certainly. Well, that's the reason. And I said, well, you are still off the track, aren't you? He said, yes, but I have not thrown away. Now, here was a perfect example of someone covering up conscience. Conscience carries on with us a kind of an unbearable repartee of how much we insist on similarities. What makes us different is that we can no stone can ever turn a part of itself on another part of itself. Nope, that it understands that page. But we humans mirror. We can be pleased with ourselves. And so it is possible for us to have tensions of all kinds which do never in your life see a rooster with an Oedipus complex. Pig with an Oedipus complex. No animal ever has a complex. Ulcers, indeed in some animals, but they were introduced by humans. The animal left to itself, however, we feel a tension between what we are and between the ideal and the fact. We are somewhat like a mountain to which we're climbing and which we hope to attain, and which at any time we might fall. Now, why is it when it does not trouble the rest of creatures? Think of how many abnormal ways there are of avoiding it. Alcoholism. These are just a few of the ways of avoiding. Then have you ever noticed how pessimistic some people become? Of the picnic. Everything is going to turn out to be a catastrophe. They know it. They take this attitude. Because in their own heart and soul, they know very well deserve some kind of an unfavorable judgment. And so they bring back that judgment and are always awaiting the electric chair. Their judgments are influenced by this pessimism. Another psychological manifestation of avoidance of conscience is hypercriticism. Always wrong. And have you ever noticed the letters that are sent to the newspapers? They begin with, I cannot stand my wife because my son, ordinary affairs of life. The poor neighbor never can do anything good. Abraham Lincoln once gave the right answer to it. He was going into a hospital in Alexandria during the Civil War. Presidents were not well known because Afraid he had not circulated all of his photographs. Running out. Bumped into Lincoln. Sent him spurted at Lincoln. Get out of the way, you big, long, lean, lanky stiff. What's troubling you on the inside? And so with hypercriticism. We are so conscious of a real sense of justice that if we do not right ourselves, we have to be right to a room where there are a series of pictures and one of them is 2 inches awry. You want everything in order. We want everything in order except ourselves. Escapes from this unbearable repartee. And in order to let you know that human nature has always acted in the same way, in his great tragedy, Macbeth, Shakespeare, long before psychiatry, described a perfect case of psychosis. And it was Macbeth that had the psychosis. Lady Macbeth, his wife, had the neurosis. In order to attain the throne, Banquo the king was murdered. So much that he developed a psychosis. And he began to see the ghost of Banquo. He imagined he saw him seated at a table. The dagger was constantly before him. What is this dagger before my eyes? Imagination. But the projection of his inner guilt. Shakespeare, in pointing out that whenever there is a revolution against him, doubt, atheism, and Macbeth reached a stage where to him life was just out, brief candle. Life had no meaning from day to day. And all our yesterdays have lighted fools. I tell you, skepticism, agnosticism, and atheism, their foundations are in the moral order. First, there was a revolt against God. Then look at Lady Macbeth. Her guilt manifested itself in a neurosis, that she washed her hands every quarter of an hour. Had completely negated. And instead of washing her soul, she projected it to her hands. And her hands were always smeared. She said that not all the waters of the 7 seas, blood incarnadine from her hand. Out. And one can see it very easily. I was once instructing a young woman, and she had finished, and on records, not these, but others which I had made before. She had finished, and after the first instruction on confession, she said to my secretary, "I'm finished. No thing about the Catholic Church from now on." My secretary phoned me, and I said, ask her to finish the other 3 on the subject of confession. 3, and she was in a veritable crisis. She was screaming, shrieking, "Let me ever want to hear anything again about the church after hearing this talk on confession." Well, it took about 5 minutes. There is absolutely no proportion between what you have heard and the way you are. So there has to be something else. Do you know what I abortion? He said, yes. So, now see how that bad conscience came out? An attack upon confession, the truths of faith. We will find that an attack upon religion satisfies for the moment. Now, what does this conscience mean? What significance has it for us? The United States government is divided into three offices and the judicial. The legislative, Congress that makes laws. Who witnesses to the conformity of law and action and conformity. Now we have all of these inside of us. First of all, we have a side saying, thou shalt not. I might interrupt. Conscience is that which makes you feel good after. And wrong is. So we have a law. Thou shalt not. From myself? No, if it did. Does it come from society? Because sometimes conscience praises me when society condemns me. When society praises me. Where, if not from myself? Where then does the executive side of conscience come from? Judges whether or not I have obeyed that law. It says, I was there. I saw you. And well that one must. And one also knows the motives that inspired the act. And if therefore it praises us for certain actions that we would from being praised by a father or mother, that we feel when condemned by a father or a mother, it must be that behind the divine thou, most of the mental problems from which people suffer today against this law which is written in their own hearts. People return again to conscience. Peace comes back. Very, very different. And that is what we are after. Peace. Therefore, this unbearable repartee is only one side of conscience. It is the kind as if we've broken a bone. The bone pains because the bone, our conscience, troubles us. Because the conscience is not this power of self-reflection that we have. We can see ourselves, and particularly at night, afraid in the dark. And it's a gentle voice saying, your freedom is never destroyed. But you feel, and you ask, well, why is it not stronger? And God respects our freedom that He gave us. You perhaps may have seen. It is a picture of our blessed Lord standing at an ivy-covered door and knocking. And the critic said There was no latch on the outside of the door. That was right. There was no latch on the outside of the door. It was conscience